Hello, this is John with VersaFeed.com. Today we're going to be taking a brief look at Google Shopping. So with that, let's go ahead and visit the Google front page and see if we can't find some results of Google Shopping in action. So first we're going to search for a product. We'll do tennis shoes and we'll see what Google shows us. Okay, so you'll see at the top here, we're already getting some good results. The image results that you see here are, in essence, the beginning or the entry point of Google Shopping. These are pay-per-click ads. They require you to submit your inventory to Google, and they require you to keep that inventory up to date. They also require an AdWords component that we'll look at in a bit where you can bid. As I mentioned, these are pay-per-click, so each of these companies, as you'll see here, and again, there's 5, they've all set a bid price that they're willing to pay for someone to click on one of these. Now, if someone does click, they will be charged that amount, and the actual client or the consumer will then land on that company's page and hopefully have a transaction. So this is, in essence, Google Shopping, and this is one of the reasons that we're talking about it is how prominent it is. You'll see that for each of the hits, there's an image of the product, there's the name of the product, there's the price of the product, and then there's the company who's selling it. So they're giving these really great visibility. And you can see we still have the classic text-based ads on the right-hand side. Now these are all AdWords ads, but the ones that have the images that are part of Google Shopping are typically referred to as product listing ads. And we'll get into that a little bit in more detail in a minute here. So this is one of the areas of Google Shopping, and like I said, there's kind of a larger area, and you can get into that by clicking in one of two spots, either Shopping or the Shop for Tennis Shoes on Google. And we'll do that in a minute. Let's take a look at another search example, though, just to show an example of how Google is actually, they have quite a few different layouts, and they've been changing them frequently of how they actually put these various product listing ads onto their front page. Let's try a laptop. Okay, perfect. So you'll see for this particular example, we're not getting any text ads, but instead they've chosen 8 different retailers to list in the Google Shopping area on the right-hand side, each with their individual product listing ad. So there's a lot of visibility here. Obviously, when there's an image, the eye is drawn to it. These have been performing very well. So let's go ahead and dig in a bit, and let's take a look at kind of the full Google Shopping. And again, like I mentioned, you can get there by either clicking Shopping or Shop for Samsung Laptop on Google. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, now we're in the full Google Shopping results. There's quite a bit of information in here. You can find various products. You can search amongst hundreds of retailers, if not thousands, as opposed to just the 5 or 8 that Google offered you on the front page. So you can really drill down. But at the end of the day, it is very similar. These are all based on data feeds of inventory that companies have given to Google, along with that AdWords component so they can bid on the product. And that's what enables companies to list in these particular areas. We'll go ahead and click on one just for an example. You can see that if you click on this, it's going to give you some information about the product. And then you're finally going to see a big list here of all the different companies who sell it. And again, if you actually clicked on one of these, you'd be taken to that company's page for this product, and that company would be charged according to how much they bid for the particular product. So in an essence, that is Google Shopping, and this is something that a lot of people have been jumping on because of the high visibility. Let's go ahead and cover some of the more confusing terms inside of Google Shopping. So we've already used some of these. Let's just drill down exactly what they mean. So Google Merchant Center and Google Base, those are actually synonyms. And that is the entry point in Google where you as a retailer can give your information to them. So we'll take a look at some screenshots of Google Merchant Center. The only difference between these words really is that Google Base is an older term that's used. Google Merchant Center is a more modern term, but they're interchangeable. It's just the entry point where you can deliver your feed information, your inventory, actually to Google. Okay, Google Shopping, Google Product Search, and Frugal. So it's a bit more complicated. Obviously, we've been talking about Google Shopping. So what is Google Product Search and what is Frugal? Well, Google Product Search and Frugal are really the predecessors to Google Shopping. They were not pay-per-click. They did not have any AdWords component. All that they required was that you upload your information to Google Merchant Center, and they would list your inventory. So those programs are dead. Google Product Search is gone. Frugal is gone. Google Shopping is now what Google is focusing on, and again, it does have that pay-per-click component. Lastly, product listing ads. Um, Product listing ads are really the core format that Google Shopping uses. So when we were on Google and we were looking at some of the results, let's go ahead and click back here. Each of these 8 results you would refer to as a product listing ad. And it's just the underlying format of the AdWords style ad that has this image and this price. They refer to that as a product listing ad. Okay, let's talk about some of the major differences between AdWords text-based advertising, which many of you are probably familiar with and has been around for a much longer time, versus AdWords product listing ads and the Google Shopping environment. So the major two differences right off the bat, there's no keywords for product listing ads. Google is going to determine that automatically based on your data feed and your products. There's also no ad copy. As you noticed when we were looking at the ads, there's nothing in here that you have to write. So they're going to get the actual image from your feed. They're going to get the product title from your feed. You don't have to write anything fancy. So you'll see in this particular page here, there's a classic text ad here as well. Now let's take a look at what that says. So they had to write shop best-selling Samsung laptops, etc., etc. That doesn't have to happen with Google Shopping in the product listing ad format. So both of these things allow you to create extremely extensive long tail AdWords campaigns for Google Shopping that are much simpler to manage because of these two distinctions. There's no keywords and there's no ad copy. Obviously, there's a different ad appearance as well. The last thing we'll discuss is that generally speaking, these are higher performance ads too. So not only are they simpler to set up, with no keywords being needed and no ad copy. They also typically have higher click-through rates, and that's pretty obvious because if we look again at the various ads here, the eye is really drawn to the various the images. So we typically see higher click-through rates. The really cool thing is we also typically see higher conversion rates, as in the actual amount of people after they've clicked through who actually are buying the product. The reason for that is fairly self-evident. If you click on one of these product listing ads with the image, you know who's selling it, you know what the price is, you know the title of the product, and you even see an image of the product. So a lot of the question marks that you might have as a consumer in your mind are already answered before you as a retailer are even charged for the click. Comparing that, let's say, to, again, the ad that we have on the left side here from Best Buy, which is the classic AdWords text ad. It's not to say it's a bad advertisement, but you don't know what page you're going to land on. You don't know what price you're talking about. You don't know what model you're talking about. So it's really, it's not to say that text ads are completely going away, but you typically will see higher performance ads with the Google product listing ads and the Google Shopping environment as a whole. Let's talk about the big picture overall. Google has said in many different ways that they are fully committed to this new Google Shopping environment. So we think it's something that's not only here to stay, but is going to increase as well. We've heard from Google reps that one of the Google co-founders is involved in this process, that they're planning on putting even more traffic into this once they have everything kind of fine-tuned. It is a relatively new program. So we've seen that they've got a pretty large force behind this, and it doesn't seem that it's going to be changing anytime soon. We also see, like I mentioned before, better stats for the actual ads. And then lastly, there's obviously a number of different options that retailers have as they're trying to market. I won't get into all the various ones here, but I have listed the most common: SEO, social marketing, standard AdWords, as in text-based ads, and then marketplaces like Amazon. All of these have their pros and cons, but we firmly believe that the quickest solution for retailers looking to bring their product to market is Google Shopping. Okay, with that said, let's talk about how to list your actual inventory. Now, we're going to go through a bunch of screenshots here that show you the various components involved. As we've mentioned, there's Google Merchant Center, there's an AdWords area, and then, of course, there's going to need to be a feedback area, and we use Google Analytics for that so you can check your performance. The screenshots that we're going to walk through, it's not necessarily detailed enough so that you can do this on your own, but it will give you a pretty good overview of the various components involved. So let's start with Google Merchant Center. So you can get to Google Merchant Center by visiting the URL listed above, which is base.google.com. If you already have an account, you can sign in. Otherwise, you can create a new account. We're going to walk through the steps briefly of what it looks like to create a new account. So they'll ask you some basic questions, make you agree to the terms of service, etc., etc. You're going to want to fill out as much information as you can. It's very important to give them detailed and accurate information for your tax and shipping and other things. And finally, what you'll land on is the actual Google Merchant Center dashboard. As you can see here on the left-hand side, there's quite a few things we can do. As I mentioned, this is going to be a relatively brief overview. The most important area here is really going to be the data feeds area. Now, this is where you actually can give your product inventory information to Google. And as you noticed here, we made an example, or we're in the process of making a new example feed called mynewfeed.xml. There's a variety of formats. There's plenty of areas out there to research this, but the general thing here is that you're going to be sending them a new set of information called the data feed, which delivers your current inventory information to Google Merchant Center. The next area we're going to take a look at will be the FTP settings, and this is where you actually specify what your password is and your username so you can send on a regular basis your inventory to google.com. Lastly, the AdWords settings area. Now, this is important because this is where AdWords is going to pick up all of your product listing data. So AdWords by itself will only allow you to set bids, things of that nature. It doesn't actually have your inventory to create these specialized product listing ads. So what you do here is you specify your ID for your AdWords account, and that allows you to link the two accounts up so AdWords can then actually create the product listing ads in your Google Shopping campaign for you. So let's go ahead now and take a look at actual AdWords. Here's the sign-in page. You can see it's adwords.google.com. You'll want to create a new campaign for your Google Shopping listings. That's kind of a best practice according to Google. So you have one campaign that manages all of that. As you can see here, we're creating a new campaign called Google Shopping. Now, this is the most important part of the actual shopping campaign. You'll see we've highlighted the tab called Add Extensions. This is the area in which you can link up in the AdWords side. You can say, pull in data from my actual Google Merchant Center account. And that's where you're actually going to get all the juicy information about your products, like what you sell, the images, the prices, etc., etc. So that all being said, one thing we're not going to be getting into here is the actual bidding on the products. We're going to be making a separate screencast for that because it is somewhat complicated. But needless to say, the most important thing right now is that you do indeed link up the two accounts, your AdWords account and your Google Merchant Center account. Okay, so let's now go ahead and take a look at the next step, which would be Google Analytics. Of course, you're going to want to get feedback on how your Google Shopping campaign is going. We recommend analytics mainly because analytics is integrated tightly with AdWords, so you can easily see what you spent. It's fairly easy to see within any given attribution platform like Analytics, Core Metrics, and others how much you actually have generated in revenue. However, it can be challenging except for within Google Analytics to see what your overall spend was. So we recommend Analytics to do this. In any event, here's the login screen for Analytics. It's google.com/analytics. And there's some intro pages here to get through. So now we're in actually the core of Analytics. And as you can see on the left-hand side here, we've clicked on Advertising, then AdWords, and then Campaigns. And because this is actually a fake account, there's no real data here. Normally you'd see a nifty graph with all the different visitors coming into your site. You'll also notice right now that there's three areas: site usage, e-commerce, and clicks. These are critical to actually getting the details you need to determine whether or not you're making money or you're losing money. So right now we're on site usage, which gives pretty basic details, namely the number of visitors you've had on any given day. Let's go ahead and take a look at the e-commerce area. So what you'll notice in the bottom now is that the revenue is actually there. So revenue is obviously an extremely important part of this equation. The revenue means your total checkout price, and this is what's going to allow you to see how much money you're generating from your actual Google Shopping campaign. This doesn't actually let you see, though, how much you spent. So for that, let's go ahead and take a look at the clicks area. So again, you'll notice on the bottom area, the attributes have changed. You can see now the number of clicks, and the big one here is the cost. You can see actually how much you've spent. So given this, the cost, and the previous screen that we saw with the revenue, you can really make a good guesstimate now as to how well this is doing. Are you making money? Are you losing money? Do you need to reevaluate the situation? Do you need to drop Google Shopping? Do you need to retune your feeds? So this should give you a good overall idea of how your Google Shopping campaign is doing. Okay, so best practices. First and foremost, keep your feed updated. You want to make sure that Google has your latest information. If they don't, they're going to be advertising products that might have the wrong price or that might be actually out of stock on your site. You also want to make sure you're being compliant with Google's latest feed specifications. That can be challenging because they are constantly changing what they actually want from the retailer. That being said, you can do all this relatively easily by monitoring your Google Merchant Center for errors. So inside of Google Merchant Center, there are a number of areas, mainly the data quality area, which will let you know if there's any significant problems. If there are, fix them, and fix them quickly, because Google will actually penalize you significantly sometimes if you don't actually make those changes within a decent amount of time. Next, decide and execute a bidding strategy. So we didn't talk about this very much, but we are going to be making a screencast that actually details different bidding strategies. The point here, though, is that you want to be aware of the different strategies. So if you're going with a very basic campaign that has a single cost per click for all of your items, and you're going to try it, and then monitor your results in analytics, as the last point indicates, to make sure it's working. If it's not working, you can always go back and try a new bidding strategy. You don't have to stick with the same one. If you want to, you can use very detailed tools, the kind of things that VersaFeed offers, so that you can do SKU level bidding if you want to. There's so many different varieties. It's actually, we're not going to get into that, but make sure you at least have a picture of how many different options you have. And then, of course, monitor those results inside of analytics so you can see how things are going. And that's it. I really appreciate you watching the screencast. If you'd like to get in touch with VersaFeed, there's some information on the screen here. We specialize in data feed management in general. We focus exclusively on Google Shopping management for a lot of retailers because this channel is so large that it actually can warrant its own service provider just for this one channel. In any event, you can give us a call. The number is on the screen there. You can check out our webpage at versafeed.com, or you can always email us at info@versafeed.com. Thanks again for watching our presentation.